I remember how I first started using cutters in my paintings. Guess what? I was really bad at it. The thing is, I couldn't really control the cutters. What I was mixing on my palette was not really the same when I tried to apply it on the canvas. There was always this difference between what I was doing on the palette and what was happening on the canvas. Thankfully, since then, I have found a solution, and it is just so simple. I don't see a reason why I shouldn't share it with you, my friends. The solution is what I call the 3S, small swatch strategy. Let's break it down today. Cutters don't exist in isolation, and the fundamental problem is that the palette is isolated from the canvas. There are two different spaces, so what happens on the palette is not necessarily exactly what's going to happen on the canvas. Just because it's a different space, it's a kind of a different mindset. Sometimes you simply get it wrong on the palette and you only realize it too late, because color is always relative. Its value, its chroma, the temperature changes depending on what's around it. It's very much like this optical illusion with the cube and the different color swatches. They look different in the context. Like here, it looks like a brown on top, and the other one looks like an orange in the shadow, but actually in reality they are the same exact hue. They look different in the context, but they are actually identical. Well, now imagine that the process of making a painting is like building a giant optical illusion with small cutter tiles placed next to each other. But there is another reason why things might be different on your palette and on your canvas. The cutter might look right on the palette and shift it completely once you place it on your canvas, either wet on wet or wet on dry. You have to understand that there are two types of cutter mixing. There is palette mixing and what I call canvas mixing. Palette mixing is just very easy to understand. It's when you prepare your cutters on your palette, either with your palette knife or with your brush. There is also something that I call canvas mixing. It's after you have your cutter ready on your brush and you apply it on your canvas, and then there is some type of cutter mixing that's happening there as well, between the previously applied paint, wet paint, and the new cutter. Let's say you have a yellow paint and you want to cover it with some blue paint, wet on wet. Well, if you move it around, there's going to be some type of wet on wet mixing happening right there. And even if you're painting wet on dry, like with glazing, scumbling, or layering multiple cutters, you still get all types of unpredictable cutter effects. All of this is part of what I call canvas mixing. The cutters can do various things on your canvas that you don't really control, and it can be very different from what's happening on the palette. So trying to predict everything is really difficult, and it's true that with a lot of experience you gain a natural ability to understand canvas mixing, how it affects your cutters, and what you can do to circumvent it. But as a beginner, I remember how I was looking for a way to get a sort of an immediate experience just to get started. And this is when it clicked and I thought about this strategy, and I called this strategy the small sample strategy or small swatch strategy. Let's call it the 3S because it sounds cool. Let's check it out. If you like my approach and want to learn more about painting, know that I have two courses available. My first course is focused on oil painting techniques from beginner to intermediate, and my second course is more advanced and focuses on color theory and its application for painters. I've received great reviews on them, very proud of these courses, so if you want to learn how to paint, I'm sure they can help you. Check out the links in the description below. Alright, so because color is always seen in a certain context, we can't just rely on palette mixing. This is why we test directly within the painting's context with the 3S method, the color swatch technique if you prefer. It's fast, it's subtle, and it will give you crucial feedback without the stress of repainting an entire section. So it works like that. You first load your brush with the color that you've mixed, and the one that you estimate is the right one for the spot. So right now I want to paint this arm right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently dab a small kind of test mark on the area where I intend to place it. And here is just a small version of the larger area that I want, but I'm not going to commit too much. I'll first step back, observe, see how it works, see if it's the right relation I compare to my model. If it works, I keep it. It means that it's the right one, I'm on the right track. If it doesn't work, then I can try another one. I can do another small dab like that. Just a very small amount, just to see how I am. Very often it's very natural for painters. They do that very naturally. Before they start an entire section, they will just do a little dab like that. Just a little shy little dab, just to see how things go. And if things go well, then you can just take a bigger brush and you then move on. So move on with the rest. Right? So then you can fill in this little test sample, this small sample strategy. You can see if it's within the context of the other colors. Does it sit right? Is it dark enough? Is it light enough? Is it not too cool? Is it not too warm, too strong, or too dull? Is the value correct? So if it works, great, you keep it. If it doesn't work, you can always do that. You can scratch it off and start again. Or if it doesn't work, if you apply it thickly enough, you can just cover it with another dab. It's very simple. Well, the idea is you scratch it off, you wipe it off, or you cover it. You just do it all over again. You do a little test again, and you start from scratch. And the great thing is that at this stage, you're not painting over the entire surface area. You're just sampling a little bit of the colors to see if they work, and then you can commit and paint the bigger areas. The power of this little technique is that it doesn't end with testing colors. It can actually be transformed into a complete method when combined with a tiling approach. So first of all, what's tiling? I made a video about it. It's the practice of placing individual colored tiles, or dabs if you want, next to each other piece by piece, rather than blending big areas early on, or then making flat areas or making gradients early on. With the tiling approach, it's almost like building a small painted mosaic. You're constructing the painting by carefully laying down controlled brushstrokes, each one tested, adjusted, and positioned in relation to its neighbors. And the 3S technique is the perfect match to go with the tiling approach. When you test a swatch, you're not just asking, does it look good here? Like as a general statement, you're also asking, does it belong in the context with the other tiles that I've placed before? So with the combination of these two kind of techniques, every color on your canvas is almost like a pixel, like a brush pixel surrounded by a certain context. And the context determines the perception of each new swatch of color, each new little tile. So when you test, you place the little swatch right at the edge of the existing painting. It really looks like a mosaic coming to life with the colors slowly happening, like the scales of a fish, for example. The colors don't float out on their own. They are always connected to a previously applied little tile of color, almost like a pixel or a scale if you want. So you lay them down next to each other. It's very simple, works very naturally, especially if you're a predominantly tight kind of painter. It's going to feel very natural, very nice, very pleasant way of painting. And technically, you can build an entire painting this way, little by little. And tiling or using this kind of a little sampling strategy, it doesn't mean that you need to only use small brushes to paint small swatches. You can actually do the same with big brushes. Of course, when you do a little sample a little test mark. I always recommend to do that with a small brush because it's just easier to erase and you commit less. Once you have confirmed that the color you have on your brush is the right one with the 3S strategy, you can then move on and pick up a bigger brush, fill the area however you like, and really from there it's easy mode because you have the confidence that the color is the right one. So this kind of little sampling method improves your decision making and frees up some confidence. You're not doubting your color, so you can more confidently apply your brushstroke. And it also helps in building the habit of making real-time adjustments on the canvas. Each little swatch is a micro decision. Is it cool? Is it warm? Should it be lighter, darker, duller, more pure, more concentrated in color? And as you build your entire painting, you'll start to feel how easy this approach is. Every time you try to paint a color, you're not just guessing, you're making a tiny educated guess and seeing how it reacts. Does it need to be darker? Does it need to be lighter? Should I change the hue in some way? Should I change the value? Should I change the chroma? Every time you can make your decisions very easily based on the results given by your small swatch. It's actually a way of managing risks because the risk is really minimal. It's tiny. It's easy to erase, can be wiped right away and corrected just right there. If the swatch isn't working, just remove it with a palette knife, cover it with something better. So again, here is a summary of the technique. Place a clean swatch of color, make an educated guess, and try to place it next to the previous shape that you've painted. Now you compare if it's too strong, if it's too light, if it's too dark. If something is wrong, you remix slightly and try again. Once it fits, once it's convincing to you, you can leave it alone. It means that the mark is doing the job and you can upgrade to a bigger brush and start filling with the color on the entire area. Then you can move on to the next tile, do another round of testing and so on. And over time, these controlled placements will create beautiful transitions. If you lay down tile after tile, the blending will kind of naturally happen like this. If you want more gradients and softer transitions between your little swatches of color, your little tiles, you just have to make them closer together and create some sort of an overlap, and it will blend very naturally. You will not even have to think about it. So try this method. Really, it works for everything, for portraits, for landscapes, for still life. Anytime you have to find and guess a color, make an educated guess with the 3S method. The logic is universal. So next time you feel unsure about a color, as I did when I was a beginner, don't just guess, don't try to make it out of your head. Make an educated guess with the 3S. It's really testing before committing. And it might seem like it will slow you down, but in truth, it will save time. Fewer reworks, fewer muddy corrections, fewer entire constructions that are wrong but you figure out too late. Your eyes will also become sharper every time you do that. Over time, with the experience, you'll find that you don't need to run all these tests all the time because your accuracy simply improves very naturally and you don't need to do them anymore, or at least maybe you do them in the background but you don't think about it anymore. You know, painting is problem solving. You're constantly making decisions based on visual relationships. And the 3S method, this little cutter swatch technique, gives you a low risk, high reward way to check your judgment, and gradually it turns cutter guessing into confident, intuitive control. Use it, try it, and let me know how it goes. Thank you, my friends. Check out this video next. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, joy and inspiration to you. Bye.